Our Across the Aisle segment tonight. Well, Democrats, you finally got your investigation into Russian collusion. It just may not be into the politician you were hoping. The Department of Justice says they are considering appointing a special counsel to investigate Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation's role in the sale of uranium-1 to Russia. Now, if you haven't heard about this scandal from the mainstream media, it's because they and their allies on the left are doing their best to cover it up. Funny how they love to talk nonstop about Russian collusion, but when one of their own is implicated, they're silent. With me now, radio talk show host and attorney Robert Patillo. Robert, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Liz.
All right, Robert, let me ask you, the past year and a half, Democrats have talked almost nonstop about Russian collusion, whether, Donald Trump and the Russians colluded in order to undermine our democracy and steal the election from Hillary Clinton, yada, yada, yada. Yet now we have pretty substantial evidence that there might have been some collusion, perhaps even quid pro quo, between Hillary Clinton, the Clinton Foundation, and the Russians, and Democrats go silent. How come?
Well, you have to realize there's a difference between the mainstream Democrats who control the party from the coast, the New York and D.C. coastal elite, the L.A. coastal elites, and regular Democratic voters throughout the rest of the country. Most voters, what they want is to find out what Russia's influence was on both sides of the aisle during the election. So that's investigating President Trump, that's investigating Hillary Clinton, the Clinton Foundation. We need to restore faith in the government. Most Americans have no faith in the system as it exists right now. So whatever needs to happen, let's line up the lawyers, let's line up the judges, let's get the indictments out, and let's find out what really went on in the election.
Right. So let me get that straight. You, as a Democrat, are you saying that you would support the appointment of a special counsel to investigate the uranium-1 deal and the possible quid pro quo with Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation?
Absolutely. What we have to remember is just what we learned from Donna Brazil's book recently, that the will of the average Democratic voter was not executed in the last election. Because of that, I think if you were to talk to most rank and file Democrats, not the people who are at the top of the party and who have been in charge for the last 20, 30, or 40 years, they want to find out exactly who is running the party and get them out of there to make sure that we can get the actual will of the people. We need to have candidates who are talking about health care, talking about education, talking about criminal justice reform, and instead we end up with the same politicians year after year. Let's remember that the top three Democrats in the House of Representatives, Pelosi, Hoyer, and Clyburn, are combined 221 years old. We have to start clearing out the old guard in the party, and if it takes a couple of indictments to do it, that's just what's going to have to happen.
Listen, that's interesting. And for our viewers, you heard it here first. Mainstream Democrats, according to Robert here, Democratic voters would support the appointment of a special counsel. It's the politicians who don't support this. So you're saying this is a pretty hefty charge to leverage against levy, I should say, against your party. You're saying that the people who are leading your party are out of touch and you want them thrown out of office.
Oh, absolutely. Let's understand that if you look at what the reason the Democrats lost the last election was because they failed to campaign in Flint. When people in Flint wanted clean water, they failed to address criminal justice reform. We had hundreds of thousands of young people marching in the streets for criminal justice reform. If they're not going to respond to the needs of the people, if they're only going to be interested in the lobbyists and special interest groups and the Weinsteins of the world, then it's time to clear them out. Clearly, something happened with uranium-1. I don't think the Clintons are in a position to say, well, just trust us, nothing happened. So if it takes the appointment of a special prosecutor, then by all means, appoint a special prosecutor. We want to know what happened with Russia and Trump. We want to know what happened with Russia and Clinton. We need to restore democracy back to the American democratic system.
Listen, this is not at all where I thought the segment would be going, but this is extremely interesting. Let me ask you that if you talk about the need in the Democratic Party for new politicians, new leadership, who exactly are you talking about? Because it seems like, aside from the Clintons and their death grip on the Democratic Party, the next people in line are Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders, with all due respect, is extremely old. And Elizabeth Warren has just demonstrated in the past week that she does follow the party talking points. She said at first that the primary was rigged, and then she said, no, it was fair, and Hillary Clinton made history. Obviously just parroting talking points.
Well, not just that. Let's understand this week now there's banter about Joe Biden running for the Democratic nomination in 2020. Joe Biden ran in 1988 when I was 4 years old. He does not need to be running again when I'm 36 years old. There's an entire generation of young leadership which is ready to rise up, address the issues of the people. The reason Democrats have lost over 1,000 elections in the last decade is because they no longer represent the interests of the rank and file working class Democrats around the country. So while we're worried about the Paris Climate accords and we're talking about very special interest groups, we're not addressing these things that are affecting normal people: jobs, health care, children, education, kids not getting shot. Those are the things people are worried about. So I do think that once you peel back that top layer of Democratic leadership, you find a groundswell of young people around the country who are in their 20s and 30s and ready to take on those roles of leadership. We shouldn't be talking about Speaker Pelosi being in her 70s, Bernie Sanders being in his 70s, Hillary Clinton being in her 70s, Joe Biden being in his 70s. When have the Republicans ever been the party of young, vibrant leadership like Paul Ryan and Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz? You can't have the Republicans being the party of young people compared to the geriatric party of the Democrats.
Unless, of course, that's an accurate representation of the ideas. I mean, it sounds to me, you talk about the Democratic voters wanting health care. Obviously, everyone wants their premiums to go down. Obamacare has made all those premiums go up. You talk about the need for more jobs, lower taxes so people can keep more of their own money, for child tax credits, for investment in education here. It sounds to me like you should be voting Republican. It sounds to me like Donald Trump's policies, for the most part, address the needs of middle America more than the Democratic Party does.
Well, we agree on the goal. We just disagree on the road to get there. If we remember, we're talking about the tax cut. If it was a tax cut that was directed at small businesses and small working class families, then sure, people would support that. But the tax cut which is currently being suggested is one that goes towards corporations. If we're talking about healthcare reforms, nobody is a big fan of Obamacare. It doesn't work. The premiums are too high. But the Republican plan to replace it is Obamacare Light instead of a system that actually would insure people. So I think if Republicans got away from their ideological lockstep to the far right extremes of their party, they would be able to get a grip on the middle road people, the middle of the road individuals who they are not as partisan as past generations. All they really want is for the job to get done. They don't care who gets credit for it. They don't care if there's an R or a D next to their name. They just want results.
Right. I don't disagree with you, except for the fact that I think Republicans failed to repeal Obamacare because they tried to be too moderate, because they tried to do Obamacare light instead of just repealing it and giving health care back to the people. And of course, the corporate tax rate gives employers and therefore employees more money in their pocket. Robert, very interesting to talk to you.